We're doing a Q&A session. We are going to talk about what Tim asked the question. We're going to go over symbols. What else?
Instance variables and params.
And params. Like when do you use each of them and what are they?
Yeah, and like the best situation, like, I don't know.
Okay, so a symbol you can basically use, you're going to use it anytime you're using a dictionary. Okay, so let's save this something. Okay, all right. All right, so symbols you're going to use anytime you have a dictionary, right? So if you're going to use like a key value pair, right? You use the symbol as the key. Okay. You're also going to use the symbol. So like for instance, if you want to get the user's first name, right? You have an option where you can do like if u1 equals user.first, then you could do u1 dot first name, right? Which is not using the symbol, but you could also use the symbol to do u1 colon first name. Okay, so you can also basically use it anytime you have a dictionary, or I would say anytime you are replacing a string. Okay, so you normally in the past when you guys use a key for a dictionary, you use the string, right? A symbol is more than this, but symbol is an immutable string, okay? And given that this is a oversimplification, okay? So
it can never be integers on.
you would not use a symbol to place an integer, though like in a dictionary, the symbol as a key might map to an integer. Yeah.
We should never equal like an actual integer, right? If the numbers are inside of the string.
I mean, you're using it as a string in the sense that you use it as a string when you're using a dictionary, right? Or like as a sort of like, as like a method call, okay? But you're not using it. You're not using the value of it for anything, right? Like so, like you're only using it to map to something else. Okay, so for instance, okay, so you have the symbol is an immutable string, right? So you use it as it like you could write if you're reading from a dictionary, okay, right? You could write if reading from a dictionary, okay, you could do like my dictionary of key or my dictionary of key. Right, this one is the symbol. Okay, so this symbol is replacing the string. Okay, so you use it for that, and then you can also use it for replacing your method call like this, though I think the preferred way is to just do it like this. So you generally wouldn't need to use the symbol in that way. The main time you would use a symbol is for this kind of dictionary stuff. And then I guess the third way that you might use it is as like defining methods in your model class. Okay, so for instance, like this, right? You're writing a method, you're using a symbol to define the method. Okay, so I mean, I guess we can kind of go through it, all these different examples in the cheat sheet, right? Like this one, you're using it as to define the method, right? This creates a method called posts that the whatever class this is written in, assuming it's like a user, then the user can call a posts method. Okay, so you're using it like that. Okay, you're also using it, just these other methods like validation. Okay, this is also a method that you're creating. Okay, and then remember, this is not a symbol. Okay, if the colon's on the right side, it's not a symbol. This is a shorthand for a combination of a symbol and a hash record. Okay, so this is Okay. This thing, right? Symbol, hash rocket value is the same as just the key name plus the colon on the right side and the value. Okay, so it's just a shorthand. Okay, but when it's on the left, it's not. This is the same as. Okay, right. So it's just shorthand. So this is by itself is not a symbol. Okay, this is a symbol, of course, and this is like defining a dictionary. Okay, or a hash. Okay, so I guess you can use a symbol like that. You could use a symbol. This is, for example, is how is the symbol being used here? It's the key, yeah, it's a key for dictionary, right? Such as a dictionary. So you're using it as a key for dictionary again. Okay. Same for this one. And then let's see. I guess in this case, the symbol would be. It's kind of being used as a. This is referencing it as a method, I think, because you're referencing like this user method. This one's a little wonky, I guess. This doesn't easily fit into one of the other ones. Okay, but I guess this is one place where you would use it also. If you're doing this params.required thing. Okay. How is symbol being used here? The key again, right? Yeah. Okay. This is the key, and then again, this is also in the key, right? It's just a nested dictionary. Okay. And, here, it's being used to represent basically a variable. Right? So you can, when they're used to represent methods, they're kind of used to represent variables and attributes as well.
You say that like when you do form submits, you're probably going to see nested. Dictionary,
when you do form submits?
Yeah, because like if you have one button that gives you that first name, last name.
Yeah, when you do form submit, it's going to usually look like this, because if you organize the form the way I described with this square bracket, right, then you're going to have a params with user, right, and then it's going to be nested with the next. Params includes the form information as well as other information, right? But when you have this in the square bracket user square bracket name, right, then you're going to have a params user, and then within the params user you'll have a name.
So this params is like a byproduct of the form submit?
Yeah, but a params would exist even if you didn't have a form submit. Okay, so params is just a dictionary where Rails stores a lot of information for you that exists within that particular HTTP request. Okay, so that includes your form information, but it also includes things like what type of request it is.
You can just like make that thing,
You can make what out of it?
Like params.
You never make params.
Yeah,
They're actually included with.
Yeah, params is set for you, right? Whenever you submit something in a form, that information is automatically stored into params for you. So you don't need to store params. Like
You don't need to initialize.
you don't need to initialize params, right? It's different from Django. Django, you had to make the context thing, right?
Mhm.
Right. But we don't need to do that here. Okay. Params is the equivalent of context, or it's close to the equivalent of context. It contains some additional information, but you don't have to make it. Rails makes it for you. Okay. The big difference between a lot of what you guys learned in Flask and Django and Rails is that Rails does a lot of things for you. So you have to memorize which other things Rails is doing for you. Okay. And so if you're getting confused, just make sure you're going through, like, you're expecting this thing to pass over here, right? And you don't have to explicitly do it because Rails is doing it for you. So just like write yourself notes and memorize all the things that Rails is doing for you.
So here is in the form, the data's name is name. And then
Yeah, well, if you submitted a form, if you did not have this user square bracket thing, you just called it name, then I believe it would be params name, yes. But you should generally a form
So
is
using
organized
param.
around. It's in params square bracket colon user square bracket colon name. Right? This is a nested form, right? It's like it's not a nested form. When you submit the form, the data is stored nested inside params, right? And which makes sense, right? Because you have all this information that relates to the user data.
So basically, like forms is
Yes.
So if you have multiple forms, you have to specify.
But you can't generally have multiple forms, right? Because one form you submit, once you submit it, it's making a new post request. You're never going to submit the other forms, right? So you're only really going to have
So,
one. Now, if for some reason you had one form that had some fields for one object, like user, and another field for product, which would be a strange form. I don't know why you would set it up that way. Yeah, conceivably, you could have it stored in with like sort of two dictionaries within params. Right? It could look like your structure could look like right now the param structure, it looks like this, right? User. So it exists like this because you used in your input field, you used like that, right? Okay. Whereas if you had done just like first name in your input field, I think it would just look like something like that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so this is right.
yeah. I mean, I see the difference.
Mm-hmm. So if you had, you could also put option 3 dash range. Okay, you could also do something like strange. I don't know why you would do this. Okay, you could do something like product, and then you have user. I mean, this could exist, but it would be quite strange. Yeah, I think this is what you're asking, right?
Yeah. But that's if it's on the same form.
It's within the same form, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to put one submit request that submits both of them.
So yeah, I mean,
But if they're on different forms,
It's like request on post, correct?
yes. Well,
well, if it's
Sort of. I mean, the fields are basically what params are.
yes, that's correct. But if you had on two different forms,
yeah,
right, they should be hitting different routes.
yeah.
So you should be completely handling it differently anyways.
If that's the case, why would you need to specify a user square bracket?
The reason you specify the user square bracket is because you've already organized it together into a user dictionary, okay? So that allows you to pass it directly into creating the
Singular.
object, right? So when
So
you
can just pass it with the user.
right?
Random.
Remember what, yesterday or the day before, yesterday or the day before, we did this user.create, right? You can just pass in params user, right? This makes it much easier than having to write out
Gotcha.
that thing, right? Now, of course, you can't do this because of the mass assignment problem we talked about yesterday, right? But instead, now you can do user params, assuming you defined it as such. Okay, so that is the reason you organize it that way. This would be. This should be a. I don't know if you can write it this way. You might have to write it like this actually. You might actually have to write it like that, or like this, or like this. I don't think you can. I don't think you can convert this into that simplified form because. This should be this. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So what are people working on? Huh? Dashboard 2. Okay. And you're working on those joins and includes on which assignment is that? Is that the blog post messages 2? Before that one. Or optimization. Okay.
It's like the last one.
All right. What's as long as it's not stuck? Okay. Just let me know if you're getting stuck with stuff. You have questions? Yeah. Sure. Layouts and partials. Okay. No, you would. I just don't have it memorized. There's more than one. Okay, so the one that's already built in for you, right, is you already have a layout built into your application, right? So, let's pull my demo. Okay, so the built-in layout that you have is that you have this application.html.erb, right? And then you yield any other files. So for instance, I'm going to yield index.html when I run this. Okay, so let's try run this. Okay. Okay. And then Rails S. Post 1000. Okay. All right. So if I were to go to my /user/index page, okay, I have all this information, right? Okay. Now this is actually this page. Okay, it's like all of this plus it's been substituted where the yield string is. So this is what is actually loading. Okay, so because it just automatically grabs from that file and combines it with this. Okay, so if I were to, for instance, write chain application HTML file text or something here, right? Okay, and if I reload this page, it should show up. There we go. Okay, and now this shows up everywhere, right? So if I go to the user/new page, right, it also is shown up. Right? So it's an easy way to sort of like recycle or sort of reuse the same data that you want to show up everywhere, right? So, for instance, if you knew that you wanted a top like header navigation bar like that, right, on all your pages, right, then you might consider putting it inside application HTML ERB so that it exists application wide. Okay, and you can also set this up so that you have like sort of other layouts where it's not quite an application HTML ERB level, but there's like it's like another intermediate level, right? And you have a lot of things that take information from that. Okay, I don't have that syntax memorized. Like I'd have to read the docs to see how to do that. But you have that option. Okay, you also have can write much shorter files. They're called partials. It's like underscore something. Okay, and you can include those into even like nest them into even like these kind of files. Okay, so you can reuse the same partial for, let's say, your index and your show method or something, right? And you could have that partial show up in like a for loop or something like that, and also pass in different variables, so that your show page is, let's say you have a partial that shows like the information for the first user, right? Then your index page just ends up being the same partial multiple times for all the different users where you're passing in a different user object. And again, I don't have that memorized either, but I mean, if we wanted to, we could figure out the syntax right now and try it.
It's just a general question. So the thing is, like that's the yield represents like blocks of code that can be used over and over. Is it like convention to put it all in one place?
If what represents blocks of code?
Yield.
Yield. It is a good convention to not duplicate your code and to reuse your code when it makes sense, so that if, for instance, you make a change to one piece of code, right, that change automatically gets propagated everywhere. Like so, for instance, let's say we're using this partial, right? We're using it in your index page and your show page, and very often you'll be using it in more than just an index page and show page. You may have some separate page that is like a combination of different partials and stuff, right? And let's say you added a field to that model or something, that display of that user, right? You added like an age field. You can add just that age to the partial, and then now it suddenly shows up like throughout your application wherever you're showing that information. So that is good practice because it just keeps things dry.
So it's kind of modularizing your code.
Yeah, it's modularizing your HTML code. It's kind of like, the HTML version of like reusing functions, right? You don't have to rewrite the same function multiple times, where you just call a separate like parsed out version of the function. It's like the HTML version of that.
So would you put something on the layout if you wanted all pages and then partial of really long?
Yeah, generally layout is like it's more like layout is like the bigger picture kind of thing, whereas partials is like snip, right? So like within a single page, you may have multiple partials, right? But layout is like something you're using for like multiple pages, right? As in like it's like the big encompassing container for multiple pages. Yeah. So they're just kind of like at different sort of levels. We could try building out something. Let's see. This might take me a little while. It's not memorize all the syntax. It's fine? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just grab that. Stick in there. Yeah. Yeah, so you have a partial right here with an underscore, right? Whenever you see an underscore, you know it's a partial. Okay. And then you render the partial like this.
So I guess like for instance the very top one, that would be the only code that would be in the underscore.
Yes, that's it. It's very short. Very short, yeah. I mean, there comes a point where like this might depend a little on who you ask, but if what you're reusing is like really, really small, like does it really make sense to make another partial for it?
Like the footer and header, it seems short enough for
I mean, if you know you want it to always exactly be the same, like, I think I can kind of see the footer and header doing it this way, even though it's kind of short, because you might expand it to something. But like, if two things just so happen to be the same, but they're not like by intention and design, like they would always be the same, it may not make sense to make it partial. Like this is a little bit of design trade-off, right? There isn't necessarily one right answer to it, but Yeah, I mean, I think this may be short. The header and footer may be short here just because they're trying to teach you how to use partials. But generally, header and footer are much longer than that.
But if it was like the footer was just like the copyright leader,
Yeah,
then I guess you could just put that in the layout.
you could. I mean, the plus side of putting in the partial is that you won't accidentally only update it on like one page, right? Like, it's if you ever do make an update to it, it's automatically updated everywhere, right? Once you've made all the connections. But writing the partials is like possibly more work than just writing that piece of text, right? Maybe that's also kind of like a test, right? Like, would you ever possibly want to update this in a way that you wouldn't want it to show up everywhere, right? Like, are they actually kind of independent in some way? Like, let's say my age example in the user, right? I could see like maybe you want to display the age on some displays and when you're displaying user information, but maybe not on some other displays, right? Just depending on, maybe you have the more detailed information on the show page, but just like a more compact, simplified information on the index page, right? And so maybe it doesn't make sense to use partial in that case, right? So you kind of just have to think ahead a little bit and guess what you think makes sense, and if you guess wrong, you or someone else in the line will fix it so that it actually matches what it's supposed to be, right? I mean, it's not like you really made a mistake in that case, right? It's just like whatever the actual design intention ended up being that no one could manually. So. Any more questions? All right, I guess that's it.